Why can't I just stop overeating? Why can't I just eat normally? I should just be able to eat normally. I hear something like that regularly. And to be honest, I thought thoughts like that on a regular basis. In today's Live at Lunch, we're going to talk about how to overcome those thoughts. Because let's be honest, crying out to the universe, why am I not normal yet? Or why can't I just do this the way I want? Isn't as effective as what now? What's my reality? We're going to get into that today because I want to make sure that when you hear those words, the why can't I, which cause nothing but pain, right? And nothing but feeling like you're not enough. I want to give you a clear way of thinking about this in the future so that when you hear yourself thinking that, you'll have exactly the answer you need to effectively move you forward and get closer to your dream of eating normally again, which I assume means being able to eat when you're hungry, stop when you're full. If you're new to Live at Lunch, my name is Helen Bennett. I'm a coach who helps people stop losing control with food, stops chaotic eating, compulsive overeating, binge eating, etc. You name it. If you're feeling out of control when you eat at times, then this is going to be relevant for you. And if you have that thought, why can't I just stop? You're going to be very clear on the answer to that by the end of this Live at Lunch. If you've just joined us as well, please, I'd love you to hit the like button if you get value from the content. That would be amazing. That gets this content out to people who need to hear it. And let's be honest, there are a lot of people struggling, probably silently, probably experiencing a lot of guilt and shame about their behavior with food, a lot of frustration, uncertainty, and fear about why they're losing control. And I have no doubt that what I'm going to chat about today is going to be super powerful. So, actually don't hit the like button yet. Let me deliver that value. And if I have delivered it by the end of this 15 minutes or so of chitty chatty, then I'd love you to smash the like button. And also, hey, if you're new, subscribe and hit the notification buttons. That way you'll know when I'm going live, because I'd love to see you in the chats. I'd love to see somebody jumping in and telling me they're listening and saying hi and asking questions. I'm always available to that. So while I have content prepared, I'm always up for, if you're watching one of these live and you're catching me live, go ahead and jump in the comments and let me know you're here and shoot me your questions if you're struggling. Let me help you break free of all this compulsion as soon as humanly possible. Okay, so we have this idea, I think, in our minds that we should be able to just eat normally. Should be able to just eat when I'm hungry, stop when I'm full, and stop losing control. And yet that should is in complete conflict with reality, because if you're watching this right now, you're not experiencing that. You're trying to, but your reality is something like, I try to eat normally, but by the end of the day, I'm losing control. And then I feel all this guilt and shame. And then I might even eat more because I feel so bad about it. And the cycle just seems to keep repeating itself, no matter how hard I try to do it differently. So your reality is that you're not eating normally. You're not just able to eat when you're hungry, stop when you're full. Your reality is that you're struggling with out of control eating. It feels chaotic. It feels compulsive. You're obsessively thinking about food all day. That is your truth right now. And I know you want to be somewhere different, but right now, that's where you are. That's where you are. And that's where you should be. And we know that because that's where you are. So we've got to take that word should out. I think somebody's going to listen to this and think, that can't be right. I should not be doing that. Your should is in conflict with reality. We know you should because you are. But we also know what you want is to be doing things differently. Now, maybe you're somebody who's had a part of your life where you used to eat normally, where food wasn't even an issue. You didn't even think about it outside of meal times. It was just eat, get on with your life. Eat, get on with your life. You want to feel that again. But somewhere along the way, things went horribly wrong, and these compulsive eating behaviors kicked in. And for most people that reach out to me and that I work with, these behaviors, compulsion, the feeling of out of control, didn't start yesterday. It started way, way back. Oftentimes 5, 10, 20, 30 years ago, when food started becoming something that was harder to navigate, where food started to feel, or eating became compulsive, where people started to feel there's something wrong here, a little bit scared, a little bit nervous. It's controlling me. Now, if you've been struggling with this for 5, 10, 20, 30 years, whatever percentage of your life that might be, then the truth is that you should be out of control right now. You absolutely should be struggling with this, because anything we repeat becomes our automatic behavior. So if I told you tomorrow, or I told you now, you should be speaking Punjabi, I don't know, is that a language? You should be speaking Swahili. You'd be like, no, I shouldn't. I've never learned Swahili. I've never had a lesson. Okay. What if I told you that relearning how to hear your signals, learning how to ditch diet culture, to stop all this restrictive BS that's got us horribly out of control? What if you're having to unlearn what you know and replace it with something you used to know? Now, if you used to know it and do remember a time in your life where you didn't think about food, it was just easy and joyful and automatic, as simple as breathing, then the good news is that wiring, there's probably some semblance of it still there. And more than that, your body wants that for you again. And once you start waking that up, it'll probably rewire back to that old way as quickly as possible. However, some people reach out to me and they've been on a diet pretty much from the day they were born, in which case it's like learning English and now having to learn a totally new language. And it's going to take time before you're thinking in that language. It's going to take time before it's easy and automatic. So if you're thinking if you grew up speaking English and now I'm asking you to speak Swahili, you'd never say, I should be able to just speak Swahili today. Nah. Or if you spoke Swahili when you were born, then learned English for 20 or 30 years, and now I'm going to ask you to re-speak Swahili, there's a good chance it's going to take a while for that to come back. And a lot of it, especially when we're talking about disordered eating and compulsive eating, chaotic eating, when we're trying to change that, the problem is so much of this has come from, not all of it, but a lot of it has come from a restrictive dieting background that really put this into full gear. And the problem with what I do is nobody wants to stop the compulsive eating, everybody wants to stop the compulsive eating, but nobody wants to stop the restriction. Everybody wants to still somehow be on a very restrictive diet. And I was this person. I'm laughing at myself. It's like, I want to eat normally, but by normal, I mean basically starving myself and losing a lot of weight. So we can have a giggle at ourselves, right? But here's the truth. Even if I gave you the perfect formula and all the solutions, it would take a while for you to adopt them, believe them, feel safe, build trust in your body, be able to hear all the signals again, and learn not to eat in response to an emotion in order to be able to be really good at feeling all the uncomfortable stuff without reaching for our good friend food to take that feeling away, however temporarily. So there's a lot to be learned, right? We got to learn new ways of thinking. We've got to change our belief systems. We've got to learn to let go of the attraction of that like final few kilos that we could lose, in an 8-week shred. Oh, I've always wanted abs. Like maybe that's just not for you. Maybe your body's just never going to go there without this horrible side effect, right? Because when we starve ourselves, no matter how logical we'd like our minds or brains to be, or how powerful we'd like them to be, if we're in a state of starvation, you can be sure your body's going to force you to eat, no matter what you want or think about the situation. Like if you need to breathe, your body is going to force you to breathe. It doesn't matter how much you try and logic your way out of it. Your body will force you at some point to breathe, and eating's the same. But the problem is when we're in that space of high restriction, we think we should be there because we're being told that that's what we need to be doing all day, every day, is be on a diet, because weight loss is the epitome of this, the ultimate status symbol, So we've got a lot of unpicking to do. So part of it is letting go of this idea that we need to always be dieting. And, and also if there's weight that needs to be lost or weight that you would like to lose from excess eating for years and years, the acceptance might be that this could take time. Like I've got to learn this whole new way of eating, and then I've still got to get into a place where I'm not constantly putting myself in a diet and really create the conditions within which my body will, if it wants to, drop that excess, right? And I've seen it happen, and it can happen for you if that's you. But just allowing yourself to not try and force it can be hard when we live in a world that's constantly shaming us for any excess weight that we're carrying, right? So we've got to unlearn the whole language of dieting and restriction, even though the whole world is telling us that's the language we should be speaking. And the whole world, that was a bit dramatic, but you know what I mean. And we also have to learn how to experience uncomfortable emotions and be with them, or find ways to um, not moderate them. When you like dial it down, because so much of an uncomfortable emotion can come from the stories we tell ourselves. You know, I overate last night. Oh, I'm such a fat cow. Oh, and then, oh, I feel even worse. And like, how much of that emotion of shame and guilt and disgust and revulsion in ourselves has come from our story, not from reality. So yeah, there's ways that you can dial down that emotive response, bring yourself back to neutral. But that takes a lot of practice. And then what about those emotions that don't can't be dialed down in a hurry, that aren't, you can't rush through them, they need to be experienced, like grief, you know, that needs to be experienced. Sometimes anger and rage needs to be expressed. So you've got to learn through this journey is like how to do all of that. So now when I give you the bigger picture, you can imagine when somebody says, I should just be able to eat normally, what they're actually saying is, I should just think that I don't need to ever diet. I should have a great relationship with my body in a world that's telling me I always need to be thinner. I should be able to know exactly what to do with all my comfortable emotions, even though I've spent 20 or 30 years medicating them with food. I should know exactly how to talk to myself when I'm ever feeling a level of self-imposed discomfort. I should know exactly the words to tell myself in that moment that will help me come back down to feeling safe and certain and sure and ready to keep moving. That's what we're actually saying. So of course we shouldn't. It's just like saying I should be able to drive a car even though I've never got behind the wheel. So when you hear yourself saying, I can't, why can't I eat normally? Well, the answer is because you haven't for a very long time. And a lot of those habits, those behaviors, those responses, which will make you feel safe and comforted for the moment, including going on a diet, that can be the same thing, right? We can feel safe and comforted in the moment of making the decision to take control of our food. But actually, it's just medicating some other feeling of unsafety or uncertainty, or trying to control for what we think people will think about us and the level of happiness we'll experience. And it's just a temporary fix. Because how many people do you know who've lost a bunch of weight and are still miserable? Or they're just so worried about how to keep it off that they can't really even enjoy it, right? So there's a lot of unlearning and relearning that needs to be done. So you shouldn't be better by now. You shouldn't be eating normally. You shouldn't, because you haven't for so long. Now, do with that information what you will. Some people want to take that and feel nothing but despair and or self-flagellation, just blame, oh, if you just all those years, you're such a piece of doggy poo, you've been such a bad. You could do that, you could choose that, or you could choose, oh God, I'm never going to get out of here, there's so much to learn. You could choose that. Or, and this is what I'd recommend, you can remind yourself that you should be where you are because you are, and it makes sense that you're still struggling because you've struggled for a long time, and it may well take a long journey and a lot of work to come out of the situation. But you know what? The more effort and energy you put in, and the more willing you are to do the work and let it take the time that it's going to take, and learn and grow and improve, then you're guaranteed you're on your way. Guaranteed. In fact, on Friday, I did a whole video about it. There's the equation for success. It's that ability to, part of the equation is resilience, and part of resilience is knowing how to have this conversation, knowing how to bust these headworms, because this is an insane headworm. It's saying you are wrong for being exactly where you are right now. And yet, of course you are, because you've done it for so long. And I bet that you weren't born on a diet, thinking you needed to be on a diet, and you weren't born reaching for food as a way to soothe your emotions. You weren't born unable to express anger or tears. You came out the womb able to do these things quite effectively, and you were molded. I was just saying to a client on a call, I caught myself earlier thinking, it's in my nature to work, to be a hard worker. And I giggled because I thought, that's not my nature at all. It's in my nurture to be a hard worker. Like 95% of my personality is down to how I grew up, the environment I grew up, and my interpretation of all of that, and then the narratives and beliefs that I established based on the nurture that I was in. My nature might be that I'm attuned and I'm sensitive. That might be my nature for sure, but I wasn't born thinking I was fat and ugly. I certainly wasn't born not knowing how to express my anger or put down boundaries or ask for what I needed. I learned that stuff. It served me until it didn't. And I had to unlearn a lot of it, and I'm continuing to unlearn a lot of it. So you can choose to be frightened at the thought that there's a way to go, or you could choose to acknowledge that it's just a matter of time, effort, and energy to learn this new language of food freedom. And the faster you let go of these headworms that tell you you're bad because you're not there yet, and you should be there faster, and it should all be easy, and you should be able to just do it. And you actually realize the reality is that no, you shouldn't. You should still be struggling if you've been struggling for a long time, because it's going to take a while for you to learn this new language. I should be able to still be thinking in English if I've learned and spoken English for 20 or 30 years. It shouldn't be easy to just switch that off, right? And so the less time you've learned the language of restriction and disorder, and the more time you spent in the language of freedom, whether that's behind you or ahead of you, or now, the better, obviously. But even if you were born, and I've had a client whose mother put her on a diet the day she was born. Even if you were born that way, you can learn something new. Even if your mother, the nurture forced you into a situation that led to compulsive eating, hiding food, feeling out of control. Even if you had no control of it at any time, and you've really had no experience of freedom, then it's still possible to learn the language. And I really do believe, and this is a bit woo-woo, I've got no evidence for this, but I really do believe that our bodies, when they start to feel real nourishment and kindness, they know. And your brain will wire hella fast, even if you've never had an experience of food freedom and don't know what it is like to not be obsessing and worrying and restricting your food intake, or can't remember what it's like not to eat emotionally. I promise you can still learn. It might take a while, for sure. It might take a bit longer if you're older. It might not. Let's be open to all things being possible. I really do believe that the more powerful we can make this narrative, not unicorns and rainbows and sugarcoating everything and pretending something isn't what it is, but the more we can find a narrative that we can get behind and truly believe, the better. And it's our job to do it. This is the radical responsibility as adults, when we start to realize that we don't have to be at the mercy of all of this mess in our head, that we've actually got a lot of agency about what the automatic narratives begin to become. And they do change over time. And the better, because the faster we will change and move in the right direction. And if you hear something from this, or you pick up something on, I don't know, Instagram or whatever, and you think, oh, I love that resonates for me, that feels like something I want to live into, you start thinking those ways and reminding yourself, even of this, every time you catch yourself thinking, why can't I just stop? I should be able to stop. What's wrong with me? You just turn it into, oh, of course I'm still struggling. I've struggled this for 20 years. I'm learning a new language. It's going to take some time. Let's just move on. Next. It's the power of that. It's not fake it till you make it. That's true. It's truth. And the more you do that, and the more you start feeding yourself appropriately and looking after your body will just come online, because our bodies know when they're safe, and it will move you in that direction very quickly. And I do see some very quick transformations in people who just suddenly make a shift, and it all just clicks, and you can just feel something stuck, and they're not turning back, but in a good way. Do you know what I mean? I think this must happen when something sticks the wrong way, when there's a sudden stickiness of the narrative of I've got to be on a diet, and it just sticks like glue, right? I think the same thing can happen. I see it when somebody gets it and they can feel the benefits inside them. They feel healthier, they feel stronger, their body's more online. They know they're doing the right thing. Every part of the intuition is saying, I know this is hard, but you just keep going. This is worth it because I feel safe, I feel nourished, I feel cared for. And suddenly it clicks. And now they just don't want to give up what they've worked so hard for. And the more they do it, the more it becomes their automatic pilot. And sure, something might come up, trip them up along the way. But you know what, again, not I should be better by now, I should be fixed by now, this should never happen to me again. It did. It is what it is. We're going to live and learn. We're going to move on, learn what we have to, see what we've improved, and keep growing. And you'll probably hear me say this a million times because it's so important. Because this resilient muscle that we're building is if we don't have it, it's the one thing that can stop people from breaking through. It's not their ability, it's their belief that it's possible, or their frustration and how long it's taking. So, we don't fail, we just underestimate the time and the effort that might be required to achieve it. But if we're willing to just put in the work and let it take the time that it takes, make the mistakes along the way, no matter how many or how long it takes for those mistakes to start happening, well then, yay. Because remember, all the way along, even if you're making mistakes, you're getting better. If you speak a new language, sure, you might still make mistakes and forget a word or not know a word, but you're a far cry from where you were where you didn't speak the first word, right? So you choose a better narrative that will get you moving forward. And if I've helped you bust this one most important, most destructive thought that you could have that brings you nothing but shame and hopelessness and despair and feeling not enough, then my job is done today. If you got value from that and you're going to use this as a, when you think that thought, remind yourself you're exactly where you should be, and you know that because it's where you are. And as long as you're making progress, you're moving in the right direction, then give me a goddamn thumbs up. Because a thumbs up for me and everybody else who needs to hear it. All right, have a wonderful day further. As always, if you have any comments, you can let me know. And as always, if you'd like to work with me, don't hesitate to book a discovery call. We'll meet and chat. I'll tell you all about the program, and we'll take it from there. So have a wonderful day further. I'll see you on Wednesday for our next Live at Lunch. End of stream, end of stream.